This episode brought to you by Progressive. Most of you aren't just listening right now. You're driving, cleaning, and even exercising. But what if you could be saving money by switching to Progressive? Drivers who save by switching save nearly $750 on average. And auto customers qualify for an average of 7 discounts. Multitask right now. Quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $744 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2022 and May 2023. Potential savings will vary. Discounts not available in all states and situations.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Last year,
It's happened!
they went and took it.
He struck him out looking!
This year,
The Texas Rangers win the World Series!
they're here to run it back.
It's over!
This is Believe in Texas Rangers, hosted by Mitch Ferreldis.
Well, looks like Mets fans can wipe that grimace off of their face. Welcome into this episode of Believe in Texas Rangers. Be sure that if you want more of your Believe in Texas Rangers content, more bite-sized Texas Rangers coverage, be sure to like and subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, be that Apple or Spotify. Be sure to rate 5 stars if you get the chance. It helps the podcast a ton. Plus, you can watch every episode on Believe in Texas Rangers' YouTube channel. Just search Believe in Texas Rangers in YouTube. You can find all the podcasts that are through the RSS feed, as well as all the video pods. And we're going to start today by taking a small victory lap and celebrating the fact that the Rangers were able to end the Mets' winning streak and this grimace era that the Mets were in. That's how Social was approaching it. They were able to get a 5-3 victory in the series finale on Wednesday. So, small victory. Let's take it. Because at the same time, it ended a 5-game losing streak. And the day before, the Mets came back with a furious rally in the top of the ninth. So, yeah, let's take the small victory lap. By no means was this a fantastic weekend for the Rangers. I mean, go back to Monday, and that probably should tell you everything you need to know about how this series went. A 14-2 final on Monday, a 7-6 final, and as we mentioned, it required a furious rally from the Mets throughout the later innings of the game. And then the Rangers, with a rally of their own, a successful 7th inning on their end, to get a 5-3 victory, and from an unlikely source in Leody Taveras, who has... We'll get into Leody in a second. But if we're trying to encapsulate how this weekend went, it's still a negative trend for the Rangers. If you consider their recent stretch, and as we've been talking about in the importance of getting series, so they lost the series to the Tigers, lost the series to the Giants, miraculously got the series victory against the Dodgers, and then an important weekend in Seattle ended with a sweep by the Mariners. So then you go tumbling back down again. And then you lose the first 2 to the Mets, one in absolute embarrassing fashion, and then the other one where your bullpen is unable to hold firm after an excellent start, to say the least, by Michael Lorenzen. And this is just a disturbing trend that continues. And I know last episode, we tried to play as much devil's advocate as we could, as to say, well, we know this team has been injured all year. This team hasn't been able to trot out its regular lineup throughout the year. They've gotten very slow starts out of the likes of Corey Seager and Adolis Garcia. But for the most part, these are still the reigning World Series champions. This is still the team that went all the way down to the wire in the American League West, and their competition is, fair. Like, the Astros got off to a really slow start, but they're still making waves about it in this most recent month of June. You would have just hoped that this would have been a weekend where, instead of having to deal with one of the hottest teams in baseball, you're able to flip the script and find a way to climb closer to 500. And the Rangers were just unable to do that. And now, as a result, they're a half game behind the Astros in the division. The Mariners, granted, they're kind of running away with it. The Mariners themselves, however, just lost 2 out of 3 in their series. So, a chance to try and gain some ground on the Mariners, it went by the wayside. The Rangers were able to get the 1 win, so we'll take that for what it's worth. But the road is not going to get any easier for Texas. And maybe it'll be made easier by the potential return of some key guys from the injured list. But right now, we're almost at the end of the month of June, and this team is 34-40. So they're 6 games below 500. Is there a way they could get back to 500 or even, I don't know, get even above 500 before the All-Star break? They got a couple of weeks to do it if they can, and if they set their mind to it. As far as positives from this particular 3 set of games, there's one very obvious one.
Wyatt Watch.
Wyatt Langford as a whole has actually had a really solid month of June. But let's focus for now on the series against the Mets. He collected 3 hits in 10 at-bats. One of those hits was his first home run that went over the wall. Of course, earlier in the year, he had his first home run, but it was an inside the park home run. So this is his first home run that actually landed with the fans. He collected 3 RBIs in the Mets series. He walked once. He only struck out twice, which is pretty positive for 10 at-bats. And he scored once. This was by far a pretty solid series of games for Wyatt. And then you look at the rest of the month of June for Wyatt Langford, and the numbers are actually really positive. He's hitting 288. He's getting on base 344, and he's slugging 458. So that puts his OPS at around a 7, or actually it puts him into 8, just barely into the 800 category. So a really solid month as far as those stats are concerned. He's driven in 11 runs. He's homered the 1 time. He has 3 doubles and 2 triples. So he's putting his speed to work. Strikeout to walk ratios, 12 strikeouts to 4 walks. Okay. He's stolen 6 bases this month. He's scored 5 times. And he's collected 17 hits and 59 at-bats. Like he's put together a really solid month and a very encouraging month, given how much hype has been had for this man being Wyatt Langford. I'm just hopeful that it continues. I would expect it to continue. And I think that this is a guy that the Rangers are going to continue to count on for the next couple of weeks until the likes of Josh Young come back. Do they entertain bringing Justin Foscue up after his rehab assignment is done? Do they consider adding him to the roster? You've still got Josh Smith, who's been contributing at a positive level since taking over for Josh Young for that injury all the way back in April. There are guys on this team that continue to be key contributors. The question is as to whether or not they can remain consistent about it. If this is the performance that we get out of Wyatt Langford after the month of June, I would expect the numbers to only increase in the next couple of months, and maybe he could reinsert himself in the conversation for Rookie of the Year. I don't know if he's going to, get back to the level that he was at the beginning of the season when the preseason hype was, oh, he's the obvious favorite to win Rookie of the Year. Because right now, if we look at the odds for the Rookie of the Year race, Luis Gil with the Yankees has been far and away the favorite in the clubhouse through the first 2.5, 3 months. And then after that, just in the top 5, Mason Miller, the A's closer, he's got some wicked talented velocity with his pitches. Wilyer Abreu with the Boston Red Sox has been a nice, pleasant surprise this year, but he's far away from the next closest in Mason Miller. Colton Cowser had a period there where he was doing pretty well for the Orioles, but he started to slow down a bit. And then Wenzel Perez with the Detroit Tigers, he's far out of it. But then Wyatt Langford still has the 6th shortest odds to win Rookie of the Year. It's going to be incredibly tough to catch Luis Gil, who's on his way to making his first ever All-Star team. At the same time, it's going to be just as hard to try and catch Mason Miller, who's probably going to be the A's lone representative for the All-Star game. But encouraging for Wyatt to have as good of a month as he's had. This is by far his best month in the majors. And if he just finds unique ways to contribute, then I think that the Rangers hit the nail on the head, so to speak, when they drafted him last year. And then this is a guy that you can entertain, as if you think back all the way to the very first pod that I did, and my argument for Wyatt Langford signing him to his extension now. And I get it. A lot of you detractors are going to point out the fact that he's young. It's not worth taking the risk on a guy who's in his first year of pro ball. But don't you want to set the precedent that these are the kinds of guys that you want to be on the next iteration of the Rangers? I think that if Wyatt continues to produce at this level and even surpasses this level that he's had in June, if I'm the front office and I'm Chris Young, I would entertain contract discussions. Because if he continues to produce at a high level, your fear is that he prices himself out of Dallas. Now, has this team ever had an issue with paying players? If you look at the very recent history, no, I don't think it's an issue. But if you want to save yourself a little dough and stretch the dollar over the next couple of years, if you're trying to maintain a contender, that's one way to do it. The other player that we mentioned, if we're going to do an example of stock up, stock down. So stock up right now for Wyatt Langford. I think that is evident just based on the way we're talking. Leody Taveras has not been great at all this month. And granted, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for having the most important hit of the series against the Mets, where he clobbered a pinch hit home run in the bottom of the 7th inning, and it gave the Rangers the eventual win. But this month has been absolutely atrocious for Leody. He's hitting .080. So 0.80 is his batting average. He's getting on base 14% of the time, 15% of the time, and he's slugging at a 1.40 clip. It has been a less than stellar month for Leody. He struck out 16 times, and he has 4 hits and 50 at-bats in the entire month. And 2 of those hits came in the last 2 games of this Mets series. So it had been a long time coming for Leody to produce. His batting average started the month at 249, and it's fallen all the way to 213. It's been a very, very rough month for Leody. The kind of month that makes you wonder if his defense is going to be good enough to be able to keep him in the lineup on the day-to-day basis. And then for some of you real pessimists, if he's going to be kept on the roster on a day-to-day basis. I think right now you have no choice but to hold on to him. But the Rangers did entertain Wyatt Langford in center field, and they had Robbie Grossman in left. So it's not to say that they don't have options that they could entertain. Of course, they've got Travis Jankowski, who's a trusted veteran off the bench that could probably spell some time in center field as well. Just maybe find ways to get Leody off of his feet a bit. Maybe that'll be the way in order to get him back in his groove, because right now he's very much not in the groove. And maybe that home run was a sign of good things to come. And maybe that'll lead to a good series upcoming against the Royals here, which starts tonight, Friday. But right now it's not good. And in a position that the Rangers are in, where so much of their talent is hurt, you need guys that are on the active roster to contribute. And if Leody Taveras is not contributing, I don't know how much longer he can be around. Speaking of injuries, let's update a couple of the rehab assignments. In particular, Josh Sborz, who had another rehab outing for Round Rock on the 19th. So that was Wednesday, was the last time that he pitched. And the Express got the win against Sacramento in extra innings, but we're obviously just focusing on the individuals here. Josh Sborz, in just 2/3 of an inning in relief of Johnny Cueto, of all people, allowed 2 hits, 3 runs, walked 2, and struck out 2. So another rough outing for Josh. If you consider back to his last rehab outing, it didn't go so well either. Do we make much of this? I don't know. The Pacific Coast League is an animal when it comes to the offense that is produced in some of those parks. At the same time, you're hoping that a rehab assignment is an opportunity for some of these players to look like themselves again. And Josh, in 2 outings, has not looked like himself. At the same time, I say it's a tough environment for pitchers to pitch in the Pacific Coast League. Johnny Cueto, through 6 innings, allowed just 2 hits and a run and struck out 5. Johnny's much older, So he probably just has an advantage over some of these younger guys. But either way, it was not an encouraging outing yesterday or 2 days ago for Josh Spores. Josh Young got the start at third base in the game on the 19th, and he went 1 for 5, and then was eventually replaced by Dustin Harris. And then in the game yesterday, Thursday, Round Rock got another victory over the Sacramento River Cats. Justin Foscue led off in this one. He's working on his rehab assignment. He was reassigned from the Arizona Complex League. Foscue at the top of the order and at first base walked twice and scored once and went 0 for 2. And Josh Young was the DH in that game, and he went 1 for 5. So no time in the field for Josh. And then good to see Justin get some opportunities at the AAA level. And like I said, I don't know if Justin's going to find his way back on the big league roster. I think if he finishes his rehab assignment and the Rangers call back up Josh Young, they have to send somebody else down. And then if you add Foscue to the mix, then you have to consider somebody else. And I think they're comfortable with the guys that they have on the roster right now, outside of missing Josh Young, especially because of how well Josh Smith has done. Like, Josh Smith is making an argument to be the everyday DH. And it lines up perfectly with the fact that you've got a struggling center fielder and you've got a guy who's got some experience in the outfield that you could plug in there before Evan Carter gets back.
This episode brought to you by Progressive. Whether you're driving, cooking, or doing laundry, Progressive knows the podcasts you listen to go best when they're bundled with another activity. Much like how their Progressive home and auto policies go best when they're bundled. Having these two policies together makes taking care of your insurance easier and could help you save too. Customers who save by switching their home and car insurance to Progressive save over $775 on average. That's a whole lot of savings and protection for your favorite podcast listening activities, like going on a road trip, cooking dinner, and even hitting the home gym. Yep, your home and your car are even easier to protect when you bundle your insurance together. Find your perfect combo. Get a home and car insurance quote at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $779 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2022 and May 2023. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
The living room is where you make life's most beautiful memories. But your sofa shouldn't be the one remembering them. The new life-resistant, high-performance furniture collection from Ashley is designed to withstand all the spills, slip-ups, and muddy paws that come with the best parts of life. Ashley high-performance sofas and recliners are soft, on-trend, and easy to clean. Shop the high-performance furniture in-store or online at ashley.com. Ashley, for the love of home.
Now, there's one other injury that I want to hit on. The Rangers haven't officially announced anything yet when it comes to their starting pitching. That's going to be this weekend against the Royals. We only know of one starter, and that's Nate Eovaldi, who's going to be pitching tonight, Friday. But Max Scherzer's impending debut is going to be in one of these two games, most likely the Saturday game against the Royals. And the Rangers haven't officially announced it yet, but there was a report from Jim Bowden, former MLB GM. He's a front office insider, and I would assume him to be correct in that report. But at the same time, the Rangers haven't made anything official. They have to still make a roster move as a result. Somebody's going to be sent down in order to make room for Max Scherzer. And they have to make sure there's a clear 40-man spot for him because he's been on the 60-day IL. So that freed up a 40-man spot. So there's still a decision to be made as far as who's going to be moved out so that Max Scherzer can be moved in. Like ancillary stuff, I guess you could say, but they still have to make a decision on it one way or another. So that's probably the only hang up as far as determining when Scherzer is going to pitch. The Rangers probably already know when Scherzer is going to pitch. They've probably planned it out this way on purpose. They just haven't made it official yet. But I would anticipate that it's going to be the Saturday against the Royals. Let's talk about All-Star voting, because the first returns for All-Star voting came out earlier this week. And there's really only one guy on the Rangers who's getting enough votes that put him in contention to be able to start in this year's All-Star game. And that's Marcus Semien. And that goes back to my soliloquy from last week, I believe it was, about how Marcus Semien deserves to start this All-Star game. Well, as of Monday, Jose Altuve is the leader in the clubhouse. I'm not surprised by that. At 620,724 votes, Marcus Semien is in second place with 539,223. And he's far enough ahead of the next closest second baseman that it's likely going to be a two-horse race for the start at second base between Altuve and Semien. As far as other Rangers are concerned, Jonah Heim is in the top 5 for catchers, but he's so far off of the two leaders in Adley Rutschman of the Orioles and Sal Perez of the Royals that the likelihood of Jonah Heim being the returning starting catcher for the All-Star game is not going to happen, unfortunately. Nathaniel Lowe's in the top 5 for first baseman, but same scenario. He's far out of the range of the first basemen that are likely to going to go. Vlad Guerrero Jr. of the Blue Jays, Ryan Mountcastle of the Orioles. Josh Naylor has been a great story this year for the Guardians, but even he's like 200,000 votes behind second place. So that one's pretty much a lost race. Third base, it's cool to see Josh Smith get a good chunk of votes. I know he's on the ballot, but it's still cool to see him get a good chunk of votes. But he's outside of the top 5. Likelihood low. Jose Ramirez is running away with the vote at that category. Now, the other position that I would have figured would have seen a good amount of support was shortstop, but we're once again dealing with a situation where two of the best teams in baseball this year, the Orioles and the Royals. Yes, I did say that right. Two of the best teams in baseball this year are the Orioles and the Royals. Feels like a flip. They have two of the better shortstops in the league, in Gunnar Henderson and Bobby Witt Jr., and those are the two guys that are running away with the vote right now. Granted, Corey Seager in fourth place is not far behind, but far enough behind that it's probably a lost case in terms of Seager making a return to the All-Star game as a starter. He could still get in as a reserve, but the years that Henderson and Witt Jr. have been having are far and away supersede that of Seager, with all due respect. But look, you guys are the Rangers fans. You go out and vote. If you want Corey Seager to start in the All-Star game, go out and vote for him. He's got a lot of catching up to do, but anything's possible. Designated hitter Josh Young's been on the shelf for most of the year. It's cool to see him get all these votes, but this one's a pretty tight race. Relatively speaking, there's kind of 4 candidates for this position. Yordan Alvarez and Giancarlo Stanton are the leaders in the clubhouse, and then David Fry, not far away from Giancarlo, and then Ryan O'Hearn with the Orioles, not far away from Fry. And then after that is where Josh Young appears, but I don't think Josh Young is going to get enough of a vote. So as of right now, we're about to check on the outfield, but as of right now, the only realistic candidate to start in the All-Star game for the Rangers is Marcus Semien. And the likelihood that he goes, whether or not he starts or not, is rather high because the second base competition in the American League this year has not been great. There's, a solid statistical season out of Michael Massey, but he's on the injured list right now. As far as pedigree is concerned, it's Altuve and Semien, 100%. Outfielders, they take the top 6 before they go into phase 2 voting. And there's actually a good chance that a member of the Rangers, and I'm sure you know who, can crack the top 6 and force their way into the next phase of voting. And that's Adolis Garcia. He's got 257,623 votes right now. And in 6th place, Alex Verdugo of the Yankees at 293,984. But splitting the two of them, Colton Cowser of the Orioles, 278,573. Now, just because Adolis has a chance of cracking the top 6 does not guarantee that he has a chance to crack the top 3, unfortunately. Aaron Judge and Juan Soto of the Yankees are running away with the top 2 positions. And then shortly after are Kyle Tucker of the Astros at 593,358. Stephen Kwan of the Guardians at 464,274. Anthony Santander of the Orioles, 321,333. And to round out the Yankees trio of outfielders, Alex Verdugo, 293,984. But Garcia still has an outside shot to crack that top 6 and force himself into phase 2 voting. And then at that point, anything can happen. Kyle Tucker has still been on the shelf with an injury, but his stats have been strong enough to keep him as high as he is in the voting. But I don't know, man. There's 4 outfielders that are having a better statistical season than Adolis Garcia. That's not to say I don't think Adolis Garcia has a chance of making the All-Star team. I think he sure as hell does. It's just a matter of whether or not he's going to crack phase 2. And if he doesn't crack phase 2, it won't be the end of the world. He'll still likely find his way to the All-Star game. I would think so. His RBI numbers are still at the top of the league. And we've known that to be Adolis as he finds a way to drive guys in. So that's your All-Star voting update. I don't want to touch on All-Star pitchers possibilities until after the starters are voted for. Then we get a chance to evaluate the rosters and determine, all right, well, so who are some of the reserves going to be? I think the best chance for a pitcher right now, I'll just say this in a single sentence and then move off of it. Kirby Yates is probably far and away the Rangers pick if you're going to send at least one pitcher. Just an absolute steal of an offseason signing, and he's been great since he took over the closer role. All right, now time to look ahead to this weekend, and it's going to be another tough weekend. You had the Mets, who are one of the hottest teams in baseball, coming in after you just got swept by the Mariners in Seattle. Now you actually have one of the best teams in baseball throughout the whole season, and that's the Kansas City Royals, led by Matt Quintaro, 42-34 in Quintaro's, I believe it's his second season with this club. And while there hasn't been much change with the offense, it's still Bobby Witt Jr., Salvador Perez. They've now got a healthy season so far out of Vidi Pasquantino, their first baseman. They're getting key contributions from outfielders, MJ Melendez, Nelson Velasquez. And then you've got other exciting young prospects like Michael Massey, who's had a couple of good games at second base. Like I mentioned earlier, he's on the injured list. But one of the real catalysts for the Royals' success this season has been their pitching. They went out and paid for Michael Wacha in free agency, and they paid for Seth Lugo in free agency, who right now is kind of running away with the Cy Young vote, in my opinion, has easily been one of the best pickups of the offseason, and he's a 10-game winner for the Royals. His ERA is in the 2s. It's clear to me that the pitching has been an absolute powerhouse for this Royals team. So if you consider Lugo and Wacha, and then they've also got the young left-hander Cole Reagans, who former Ranger, and then Brady Singer. They've got 4 solid guys in their rotation that give them a chance every single day. And then, of course, they're spurred by MVP candidate Bobby Witt Jr. at shortstop. So the Royals, they come in at 42-34, as I mentioned. Rangers at 34-40. Opening matchup tonight, Friday, is going to be Brady Singer against Nathan Eovaldi, a pair of right-handers. Singer coming in with a 4-4 record and a 3.39 ERA. Eovaldi at 3-3 with a 3.15 ERA. Saturday, there's no named starter for the Royals as well as the Rangers. As we mentioned, though, earlier, it's the likelihood that Max Scherzer is going to get that Saturday start. That's what I would anticipate anyway. And then Sunday, there isn't a decided starter for the Rangers on that day as well. But there is Alec Marsh for the Royals at 5-4 with a 4.37 ERA. That is the expectation, is that he will pitch in the closing game of the series on Sunday. And then after that, the Rangers grow ever closer to the month of July, and they're going to hit the road again, and they're going to go to Milwaukee and face the Brewers. And that's going to be a tough customer as well, because the Brewers, even in year one without Craig Counsell as their manager and no more Josh Hader, they traded away Corbin Burns, and they just continue to have a fantastic season. Like, it's not going to get any easier for the Rangers. So any victories that you can get against some of these powerhouse teams, it's the way to go. But that's going to do it for this episode of Believe in Texas Rangers. Be sure to, as I mentioned, rate 5 stars. It really helps out the podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, tell your friends about Believe in Texas Rangers. We will be back after the Royals series has concluded and get you ready for the upcoming Brewers series, in Milwaukee. So until next time, Believe in Texas Rangers.
You know when you're listening to a true crime story that has an unbelievable plot twist that makes you stop in your tracks? That's what our podcast, People Are the Worst, brings you with each episode. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Rebecca. We're identical twins who love true crime cases that make you say, didn't see that coming, and we hate the people responsible for them. Listen to People Are the Worst now on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.